Hello and welcome. Today I would like to delve into the topic of types and styles of performance magic. Types and styles. Now, you ask 10 magicians and you're going to get 10 different answers as to how many types and how many styles of magic there are. I'm going to give you mine, and I think I might put the list below. I might not. I might put it in my blog. But it's an ever-changing thing. You know, I mean, it's not something that's stationary. It's not like, oh, there's close-up and there's stage and there's parlor. It's not that way. I'm going to get into a lot of other things. Some of my distinctions are going to be about venue, and some are going to be about styles of magic. So there's two different mixes. I could do just a video on venues, or I could do just a video on styles or types or subgenres. But I'm combining them because I think they're distinct. And sometimes the venue dictates the style, and sometimes the style dictates the venue. But they're distinct, and they require a certain discipline. Each one requires a discipline. And here's the challenge, I mean, particularly for a part-time pro. Denny used to tell me, he says, hey, David, you need to have a suitcase loaded with your kid show and a suitcase loaded with your adult show. And so he had different shows that were ready to go, so that whatever the opportunity, you just go. Well, today I'm really focused on mentalism. Now, you can do mentalism for children. Listen, I have done mentalism for kids as young as 6 years old. They have enjoyed, they have appreciated, they've been entertained. So, folks, you can do mentalism for kids, but it's not what people generally expect. You know, I saw an advertisement for a kids show the other day, and this parent was looking for someone who could do magic for children and adults, because there were a lot of adults there, who had a live bunny and who did balloon animals. Well, that's not me, I got to tell you. So I didn't even I replied, but I obviously he was looking for somebody else. But types and styles of magic. Now, pictured right here is David Copperfield flying. And this is the epitome of stage illusions. So the first type or style of magic would be grand illusion. And I put it first. So David Copperfield flying, grand illusion. For me, it is the ultimate in magic. And David Copperfield is the ultimate magician. Grand illusion, stage illusion, implies that you have a full stage available to you, that you have wings, that you have backstage, that you have front stage, that you have stairs on either side of the stage, that you have all the resources of stage available to you, lighting, sound, backdrops, curtains. You have all that available to you. If you do not, then you might be doing something a little bit different. There, of course, there's Robert Harbin, who performed in clubs, who did illusions, who did grand illusion, but he did it in the club setting. But this is grand illusion, the big stuff. And I admire David Copperfield. I think he's the best magician in the world today. And he is the ultimate grand illusionist. This right here is Pop Haydn. I'm going to try to put some links to these guys below so you can check them out if you don't already know who they are. Pop Haydn wrote a book, by the way, on his life and career. He was a busker, meaning he was a street performer. And I'm going to make a distinction a little bit later between street performing and urban magic. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. But I use him as an example of the ultimate in parlor, platform, or cabaret magic. Now, to me, those are synonymous terms. Parlor, platform, cabaret. Now, you might make some distinction. A parlor harkens back to the Victorian age, when you had the big Victorian Queen Anne homes, and you had a parlor. So you had an entertainer come, and the entertainer would entertain in the parlor. There was no stage, there was no platform. He was just standing there, or she was standing there, entertaining guests in a home, in a parlor area. So platform and cabaret, there might be a small stage, there might not, but I consider this my specialty area. I really am not a close-up performer. I'm really not a stage illusionist. I'm a platform, parlor, cabaret performer. and so is Pop Haydn. This is performed for audiences smaller than a full auditorium, but larger than just a few people. And Pop, I mean, the thing about Cabaret, you know, I had a show this week, and technically I was in a parlor, but it was a very large parlor. There were about 50 people there, and the thing is, it wasn't theater style. They were spread this way. So I had to connect with the people that were sitting way down here. I had to connect with the people that were sitting way down here. It was really awkward to have the audience spread like that. And I had to walk and address my audience on either side. But that is not an unusual parlor situation. And you know, if you're doing say coins across, so you have 5 coins in this hand, and one of them appears over here, and then there's 3 over here, and then there's 4 over here. If you're doing something like that, it's very hard for an audience to see in a situation like I just described. Now I'm doing mentalism, so it's a little bit easier. You know, you hand somebody a book and you ask them to turn to any page. The audience gets involved in that. It's fairly easy for them to do that. When I had to hold something up that they could see, I had to do it this way so that everyone could see it. Parlor has its unique challenges. So another challenge in Parlor is sound. You know, I don't have a voice that really projects, so I use I go back and forth between a handheld mic and a lavalier, but even in fairly small environments where there might be only 25 people, maybe 20 people, I might still use a lavalier to make sure that I'm projecting. This guy right here, this is Tyler Rabbit, aka also known as Craig T. Nilsson. He has a YouTube channel called the Coin Magic Underground. Here he is pictured performing at the Magic Castle. But I use him as an example of a classic close-up performer. Now he is a coin magic specialist, but under the heading of close-up. Now let me make a distinction here between 2 types of close-up. You have the close-up that can be done at a table. You can see that he's standing at a table. And while he's doing a trick pictured here that is in the hands, he spent some time doing things right on the table. He did a coins through table routine in this set that was excellent. At some moments he was seated, other moments he was standing. But there's close-up that's done at the table, and there's close-up that's done standing up surrounded. And they're really 2 different disciplines. So under the close-up heading at the table, you have cards, you have coins, you have a variety of styles and types of magic. Dave Vernon, the professor, is probably the greatest, perhaps the greatest close-up performer of all time. You have guys like Ricky Jay, who specialize in cards. You have Guy Hollingworth, who specialized in cards. You have David Roth, who specialized in coins. And of course, Tyler Rabbit. So if you're not familiar with Tyler Rabbit, I'll put some links below. Check him out. To me, he is the epitome of coin magic. He's just fantastic. Take a look at him. Now, this gentleman is Robbie Moreland. Robbie Moreland is performing at a table. He's a walk-around or table hopper. Now, most, or many, not most, but many magicians that are just starting out, and some of them that have been around for decades, find that restaurant work is a great way to build up your business. They go out, they solicit restaurants, they get in there, they're table hopping, and they're handing out business cards. You know, they might get paid by the establishment, they might not. Generally, they do not work for tips, and the reason they don't work for tips is because they don't want to. They want to be on good terms with the wait staff. And if you're collecting tips, if you're out there soliciting tips, the wait staff might not appreciate it. So they get in there and they work the tables, they hand out business cards, and what their goal is, now they might get paid by the establishment, but what they really want is the private party that comes from the exposure they're getting doing table hopping. But let me tell you something. There's a difference between a Magic Castle, at the table, close-up parlor act, and table hopping. You know, these guys are working out of their pockets, man. They're walking up to a table, and a lot of these performers tell me, and by the way, I've done this. I have done table hopping. I did it for a couple of years, in fact. I never, you know, I was always told, hey, man, you do table hopping and you hand out your business card and you'll start getting private parties. I did get a few private parties, but not what I expected, not what I hoped for, that's for sure. But I did it, and I enjoyed it, and there's certainly an art to not only what you're performing and how you're performing it, but to approaching a table, knowing when to approach a table, how to approach a table. You know, God bless these guys. They're the workers, really, in the field of magic, man. You're sitting there waiting for your food, and they come over and entertain you while you're waiting. Fantastic guys. This guy's Robbie Moreland, and check him out. And then you have this gentleman. His name is Patrick Holcombe. Patrick is specializing in hospitality suites. Now, I did a few. I didn't do a whole lot of hospitality performing. Hospitality suite is a specialty area. What happens here is a corporation or a trade or a trade organization or some type of organization has gone to the trouble of renting a hospitality suite, and they want to entertain their guests. They want to mingle with their guests and present their message in an informal way. And when you're working a hospitality suite, very often you're standing up surrounded the way he is. I didn't do that. When I worked a hospitality suite, I set up a table. My table was, I couldn't get quite against the wall. People had to get behind me. So I was surrounded, but I had many more options open to me because I was working on a surface than I would have had if I was just standing up surrounded. Plus, it was a large hospitality suite environment that I worked in most of the time. So people would come in and go out of my particular room, and they would bring their friends back. So I had repeat customers coming back to see me. Most of the time they wanted to see something specific. I remember Joe Bruno's version of the Color Monty, which I also did a video of. You can check that out below. I did that a lot in this environment, and they loved it. People would come back to see it over and over again, but I wanted to give people that were coming back to see me something different to see every time, so I would present what they asked for, the request, and then I would do something new. And I was, generally speaking, you're standing there for, I don't know, anywhere from 2 to 6 hours. You're standing there performing. I remember one hospitality suite I did. I think I was there for 6 hours. And I was so exhausted by the end of the day. I could not throw a card. I could not double lift. I could not do anything. I was exhausted. So as the evening wore on, I found myself relying more and more on effects that didn't involve a great deal of sleight of hand because I was getting tired. So again, these guys, this is hard work, folks. But hospitality suites, as opposed to table hopping, as opposed to close up at a table in a parlor setting the way Tyler's doing it here. So you can see where I'm going. Each one of these, let me walk back a little slower. Each one of these is a distinct discipline, and you have to ask yourself a question as you're developing as a performer. What do I want to devote my time and attention to doing? You know, I like to devote time and attention to things that are going to give me the biggest bang for the buck. I like to develop material that I can work out of my pockets so that if I'm ever in a situation like this, I can certainly do it. But also things that are visual and that can be seen or experienced by a large crowd, because that's my bread and butter, folks. So, but these are decisions that you really have to make as you develop as performers. What is my specialty area? What am I going to be known for? Now, this guy right here, this is David Blaine. I want to make a distinction between what I consider to be street magic and urban magic. Now, my distinction is completely artificial. If you, in the magic community, if you say street magic, this is generally what people are thinking of. And here's something that that Denny was never happy about, and I don't think I'm happy about it either. Watch most of the promos. Most of the promos for new effects present themselves as what I would call urban magic. And what I mean by that is there's street magic. Street magic to me is the busker, and maybe I should just call it busking as opposed to street magic. Maybe that should be my distinction. There's busking and there's street magic. In busking, you're setting up a table, usually a tray-like table. You're doing the cups and balls. You're doing some other bits. You're gathering people around. I've seen buskers. They'll throw a rope in sort of a semicircle. They'll start performing. People gather around that semicircle. There's maybe a bucket or a hat that they're dropping tips in. That's busking. And it's a noble art. And Pop Haydn, if I can go back a little bit here. Pop Haydn is a busker, has done busking in the past, and there's still a lot of that in his act. And then you have Hannibal. Hannibal is a busker, and you can see a lot of that in his act as well. So busking is good for a performer, I think, and it certainly has been good for Pop Haydn and for Hannibal. But when I say Pop Haydn and Hannibal, if you're familiar with these guys, and I compare them to David Blaine, you can see what I'm talking about in street magic or urban magic. There's this kind of a hip, hey, come over here, let me do something wild for you. And the thing is you're seeing these promos for new effects, and you see these people with these exaggerated reactions on the street. Oh man, they're just going crazy, and there's a lot of deceit in magic. Okay, not just the tricks being done. So urban magic, street magic, whatever you want to call it, as opposed to busking. David Blaine made his reputation and his name. In fact, I would argue that David Blaine established street magic or urban magic as a subgenre of magic. He's the one. He's the one that did it. He's the one that brought it into being. Now, he made a great living at it. But, most guys, and if you're an amateur performer and you just want to go out and just do tricks for people at random, sure, go ahead, go for it. David Blaine was doing a very specific type of presentation, had a very specific brand that he wanted to bring across, and so he created this just genre, and I think he did it incredibly well. And so, but as a practical subgenre to focus on. I would encourage you to think more in terms of the hospitality suite or the restaurant or the cabaret style. Think about those things as opposed to this, because you're going to get paid here. You're not going to get paid here. That's one thing that I want you to think about is what is not only what is the type of magic, but what are the markets for that magic. Let me tell you something. There's lots of businesses that pay well to have an entertainer entertaining their guests in a hospitality suite. The market is there. There are many restaurants that see the value in having a performer entertaining their guests while they're waiting for their food. There's there's certainly a market for people who want to perform in parlors doing this kind of work. So where is the market? That's the other thing you have to ask. Now, here you have Harry Houdini, who established himself. He's arguably one of the world's greatest, perhaps the world's greatest magician, but he's an escapologist. Escapology is a subgenre of magic. Houdini personifies it, but Randy is an escape artist. There are lots and lots of escape artists doing it today. The best known, of course, is Harry Houdini. But look at him. I mean, that is typical escapology. You're being wrapped in chains and thrown into a river. Now Houdini, by the way, he did this sort of thing to raise awareness and create publicity for his stage show, where he did other death-defying escapes like the water torture cell or the milk can escape. So that's escapology. And then you have, this is Richard Osterland, probably, well, certainly the greatest teacher of mentalism in the world today. Richard Osterland, he represents mentalism. Other famous mentalists today, Darren Brown and Jerry McCambridge. Jerry McCambridge has earned himself a regular gig in Las Vegas, doing primarily the question and answer act blindfolded. So Darren Brown, as we speak, here it is in October of 2019, Darren Brown is on Broadway. He hails from England, but let me tell you something, Richard Osterland, Darren Brown, Jerry McCambridge, they have had stellar careers. So there is still plenty of opportunity for mentalists in the world today. A subgenre of mentalism is the second sight act. The Evisons, the clairvoyants, and to some extent Morgan and West all personify what this act means. You generally have someone who's up on stage, they're maybe sitting down, maybe standing up, they're blindfolded or otherwise their senses are inhibited. Then you have the partner who is in the audience holding up objects. This person, I'm telling you something, you know, I know some, and by the way, Houdini started in second sight. This was the reason why when he was approaching the end of his life, he made this pact with Bess, and he said, you know, if I can come back, I will, and I'll communicate with you in the code that we used to use when we did a second sight act. So that's a whole other story. We'll get into that at some point. I'm sure we will. But the second sight act, here's the thing about it. You can study codes. You can study them in Tarbell. There's lots of different places where you can get information. But when you see a second sight act, or the real pros working, you will sit there and you will say, they can't be, that's the most amazing thing. They cannot be using a code. I mean, here's what they do, right? They'll sit there and he'll hold up a driver's license and he won't say anything. And she'll start to rattle off the driver's license number, the age of, or the birth date of the person. You know, she'll start giving information that you will sit there and say, how is she? That's impossible. And that's it, man. When you see a good second sight act, let me tell you something. They've been doing second sight. Robert Houdin did a second sight act. So it is centuries old, and it just gets better and better and better. And these guys, the Evisons, are the best, and the clairvoyants are wonderful, and Morgan and West. So, you know, if you haven't checked out Second Sight, take a look at that. This young lady, this is the Sacred Rihanna. Oh my goodness, is she ever fantastic? I'm going to put a few links to her below. She's gone through the talent contest shows, America's Got Talent, all those places. But she is just fantastic. She, to me, she epitomizes bizarre magic. Now, there's probably bizarrists out there going, no, 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 don't associate her with bizarre. But no, she is. Tony Andruzzi, I'm going to put some of his links below, is probably one of the fathers of bizarre. Bizarre magic. I love bizarre magic, you know, because what you're dealing with here is sort of supernatural things, kind of ghost things. I do not appreciate false mediums because I believe in mediumship, and I want to try to weed out the people that are doing it for entertainment purposes. I don't appreciate it. But I understand that people do it. It's a free country, right? Do what you want to do. I would hope that if you're presenting mediumship for entertainment purposes only, that you present it that way. Real mediumship, by the way, and I've seen it many, many times, and I've done it a few times. Real mediumship is not entertainment purposes. It would bore the socks off of you, but it will lift and lift and encourage you as well as it's supposed to do. But the Sacred Rihanna just does stellar work. She'll take things that you probably already own, and she turns them into masterpieces. This is the sign and the mark of a great magician. I think we've only seen the beginning of her. I hope we see a lot more of her to come. But bizarre magic, it's another subgenre. Then you have shock magic. This is Dan Sperry, and there's lots of guys that are doing shock magic, but they do stuff that's just like, ugh, you know, and that's what I mean by shock magic. They just do things that that shock and excite. And I've seen him on Penn and Teller. I've seen him in some other places, and he's just fantastic at what he does. Check him out. Then you have manipulation. There's lots of great manipulators today that I probably could have pictured. I pictured Cardini because I consider him one of the greats of all time. Cardini was born in 1894, passed away in 1973. Did one of the great manipulative acts of all time. I'll try to put the links below. Check him out. But manipulation is a subgenre. It's a specialty area. You know, you're doing billiard balls, you're doing card manipulations, thimbles. It really helps to know something about the manipulative arts, but it's a specialty area. Then you have, this is David Ginn. He is the specialist in children's magic. If you haven't checked out David Ginn, I'll put some of his links below. Definitely check him out. He's absolutely magnificent. I love his approach. I love his style. And I love the fact that he says, I'm a children's entertainer and I'm proud of it. He's a children's specialist and he is just golden. So if you are interested in children's magic, and it is a lucrative field, check out David Ginn. All right, so what I have pictured here is what I would call specialty acts. This young lady is Svetlana Gololobova, and she is a quick change artist. Quick change artists are just brilliant to see. And these are the people that they'll come out and they'll pull up a foulard or a cover pictured here. You can see she's red. It comes up, she's blue. So there's this very rapid change, almost like a metamorphosis, and they do it over and over and over again. You think they couldn't possibly be wearing all those layers. It is magical, it's fantastic. In addition to quick change, you have pickpocketing, you have gospel magic, you have competition acts, which gets into manipulation a little bit, but I make a distinction. In competition acts, you have all kinds of distinctions. You have stage illusions, you have manipulation, you have a variety of styles and subgenres within competition, but a competition act depends on the competition you enter, maybe 10 minutes, maybe 15 minutes, maybe even less, but that's about what it runs. It's very polished. So that's a competition act. Then you have hypnosis. People specializing in just hypnotism. And one final area of magic I'd like to mention, and that is online magic or YouTube magic. There are people out there today who only do camera magic. And you know what? I think it's great if you are letting a camera go and you're doing a trick, and it's great. It certainly is a viable performance outlet for you. What I think you should avoid, if you want to specialize, or if you want to do online magic, try to avoid stopping the camera, doing the dirty work, and turning the camera back on. You know, I've seen guys do that, and the way you can tell, if you watch, if you know where the action comes, you watch, you'll see just a little static in this, that you can see where the cut came, no matter how careful they are. You can see where the cut came, and I think it demeans magic. I do. I think it demeans magic. When you're doing that kind of thing, I would discourage it. But again, it's a free country. Do what you want. I just personally, it's just not for me. I do like online magic. I watch it all the time. It's a lot of fun to watch. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this little journey through the subgenres of magic. Once again, if you like what you see, please subscribe and comment. By all means, comment. I mean, I've said some things here that I'm sure I missed something that you believe is very important to magic that I missed, or maybe I misspoke about something. Maybe I classified something in a way that you found objectionable. Let me know. Comment below. Let's talk about it. Folks, thank you so much for joining me. Have a great day. I will see you next time.